Moments later, it started to become clear. Someone was trudging through the water behind us and coming for our boat. Hello, and welcome to all Dente Creepypasta. Horror stories cooked to perfection with a splash of red sauce. My name is CZ, and I will be your server this episode. Today's story is set at the happiest place on Earth, but even the happiest places have a dark side. Let's dig right in.
Come on, Tom, let's go!
Hear that annoying voice rushing me out the door? That's my little brother Sean. Today I'd be responsible for escorting Sean and his friend Nick to Disneyland for his birthday. Sure, I wasn't looking forward to getting up early, nor was I looking forward to keeping an eye on two 11-year-olds all day. But I have to admit, I was kind of excited to spend the day at Disney. It had been a long time since my parents had taken me there, so I was kind of looking forward to revisiting the likes of Space Mountain, Haunted Mansion, and of course, Pirates of the Caribbean. What I hadn't taken into account was that my brother had never been to Disney. So although he was excited, when we actually got there and he saw the size of everything, Sean became a little bit more timid. We had to work our way up to the more exciting attractions. For me, this was a bit of a drag. I wasn't exactly looking forward to riding Peter Pan or Buzz Lightyear when I told my mom I would take him to the park for the day. And while I do admit that the Buzz Lightyear ride is actually pretty fun, I made sure to gradually acclimate him to the thrill rides as well, starting with the Gadget Go Coaster to Big Thunder and eventually hitting Matterhorn bobsleds and even Space Mountain. It was getting close to dusk when I suggested we check out Pirates of the Caribbean. Sean had been hesitant about it all day. I tried to explain that it was much tamer than Space Mountain or any of the other coasters we had been on that day, but he resisted. There was something about being in a boat and being in the dark that didn't sit well with him. But with a little arm twisting and the added element of him not wanting to look like a pussy in front of his friend, I was able to get pirates on our agenda that evening. As we queued, I could see my brother starting to get nervous. He does this thing where he runs his hands through his hair when he's nervous, and right now, his hair was a mess. There was something different about this time though. Sure, he did this during all the lines for rides he was nervous to go on, but he just had this look in his eye that was somehow different when we were standing in line for Pirates. I told myself that he'd get over it once he'd experienced the ride once and tried not to make a big deal out of it. He kept on asking me questions. How many drops are there? Do you get wet? Does it go pitch black? Will the pirates touch you? I just about couldn't take any more incessant pestering by the time we'd reached the front of the line. Our boat pulled into the station and we filled in, sticking with the usual seating arrangement of Nick, Sean, then me. But then, Sean jumped out of his seat and crossed over to the right side of the station.
I don't want to go.
Come on, I told him. This ride's nothing. Then his friend Nick jumped out and offered to skip the ride with him. Great. My one bargaining tool was gone.
You can go. We'll meet you by the exit.
I considered this for a moment. Mom would probably kill me if she knew I'd let them go by themselves. Still, we'd waited for so long, and this was one of my favorite rides. He was 11 years old now, and they were together. What's the worst that could happen? Fine, but you stay together, and meet me right by the exit. And with that, Nick and Sean disappeared into the dark of the synthetic bayou. My boat took off. I was in the third row. In front of me, there were two parents and their young son. And the front row was occupied by two kids about Sean's age and their mom. Seeing them momentarily made me regret leaving Nick and Sean on their own. Perhaps they weren't old enough to look after themselves yet. I made myself wash that thought away with the soothing sounds of the swamp. But as those sounds faded away, I felt a chill go up my spine.
Ye come seeking adventures and salty old pirates, eh? Sure, you come to the proper place. But keep a weather eye open, mates, and hold on tight with both hands if ye please. There be squalls ahead, and Davy Jones's locker's waiting for them who don't obey.
The kid in front of me grabbed onto his dad's arm for comfort. This was it, the first and biggest drop the ride had to offer. I threw my hands into the air, and the kids around me screamed as we plunged down into the darkness. Only, something was not right when we splashed down at the bottom. For one, it was still pitch black. Usually this part of the ride was lit with blue and green colored lights that accented the inside of the cavern. The other difference was the lack of music. The bottom of the drop should be accompanied by the song, A Pirate's Life for Me. But instead, all I could hear was the crashing of water around me, echoing in every which direction off the cavernous walls. I could no longer see the kids and parents in front of me as the area was pitch black, but I could hear one of them crying and the parents trying to comfort him. To be fair, that kid had every right to be scared, because as anyone who's ridden the ride knows, there was a second drop coming, but with no light or sound to tip us off as to when it would happen, it could come at any moment. All we had to go on was the crashing sounds of the waterfall getting louder and louder. I felt my stomach drop hard when it happened, and I have to say, those drops feel much faster and scarier in the complete dark. But after that, we just floated. I honestly could barely tell if we were going anywhere. I know that we drifted away from the drop, but even as my eyes adjusted to the dark, I still could not see much of anything. I began to wonder if it was just the show that was broken or if the entire ride system was down. My biggest fear was getting stuck on the ride and Sean and Nick not knowing what to do, wandering off. There was some chatter from the other guests, the kids asking what would happen, the parents and myself trying to figure out what to do. There was no cell reception. At one point, we decided to call out. Hello? No response, though I knew it was a long shot. We discussed the possibility of a power outage and what would happen if that were the case. How long would we be trapped down here? Was it a good idea to go out on foot? Before we could come to a decision, suddenly the power seemed to kick back on all at once, and that was when probably the most terrifying thing happened. The voice chanting, "Dead men tell no tales," boomed over us as a strobe light viciously overloaded my retinas. The shock of these two events would have been enough to give someone a heart attack, but what I saw in the light is something that still chills me to this day. We were at the shipwreck scene. If you're not familiar with the ride, there's a portion where a strobe light occasionally illuminates the image of a skeleton gripping the steering wheel of a destroyed vessel during a heavy rainstorm. The scene is mostly a dark silhouette in front of the stormy night sky, but when the lightning struck, there was someone standing there, staring at us. And I can tell you right now, this was no animatronic. I obviously didn't get a great look at him in that short split second, but he had a big bushy beard. It was hard to tell if he was even dressed to fit the ride or if he was just some guy in a dark jacket. Despite having only seen him for a fraction of a second, I couldn't get his fiery stare out of my head. Almost immediately after this, the lights shut back off and the audio slowed to a stop. It was pretty clear at this point that they were having power issues. Again, if you're not familiar with the ride's layout, the shipwreck scene is normally only like a minute past that second drop, but we had already been floating for at least 5 minutes at this point. Here's the other thing that bothered me. That guy I saw. If that was in fact an employee of the park, wouldn't he be helping us out right now to evacuate the ride? Knowing that there aren't usually any live actors on the ride gave me an uneasy feeling about seeing the guy. I wasn't sure if any of the others on my boat had noticed, but I didn't want to freak out those kids any more than they already were, so I didn't say anything. We sat in near silence for probably another 10 minutes. I tried using my phone light to scope things out and see where we were. I was almost shaking at the thought of seeing that guy again in the dark. I surveyed around. Great. So we'd only moved backwards from where we were before. After turning my phone light back off, we sat for a short while longer. And as we waited, I started to notice a splashing that seemed to be coming from behind us. Moments later, it started to become clear. Someone was trudging through the water behind us and coming for our boat. I didn't want to alarm the other riders, so at first I just ignored it, hoping that it was in my head or something and that it would just go away. But it became quite obvious to everyone involved that there was a person walking directly towards our boat. I looked back and my eyes were again met with an uncomfortably bright light. This time, a flashlight that was pointed up directly in my face. My heart was beating out of my chest. Who was this guy? Was it the guy I'd seen earlier? My questions were soon answered by a voice that called out to us.
Hey guys, my name is Captain Carter. Sorry about the inconvenience. We're actually experiencing a park-wide power outage right now, so I'm going to ask that you and your entire crew stay seated while I guide your ship back to safety.
The voice was coming from a costume cast member, wearing thigh-high rubber boots and just walking through the middle of the ride track. She actually ended up just pushing our boat all the way across the ride to the market scene, where several other ride boats were lined up and many other cast members with flashlights were assisting them to a hidden stairway leading out of the ride. I have to admit, they had a pretty efficient system for getting people out in the event of an emergency. 2 men in uniform were helping hoist guests out of the boat and sending them down to the emergency exit. While I waited for my turn, I had one question weighing heavy on my mind. Excuse me? Captain Carter, was it?
Yes?
I have a question. When the power came back on earlier for just a couple seconds, I saw a guy standing there, just looking at us.
Oh, that must have been one of the animatronics coming back on. Sometimes it takes a few minutes after a shutdown.
Are there any animatronics over in that area though? Like by the shipwreck?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I'd have to check on that.
I would later take to YouTube to confirm what I saw was not an animatronic. The uniformed guys then helped me out of the boat. I thought I must be one of the few Disney guests to ever get to walk the area of the ride scene on foot. I was the last guest to evacuate the ride, and I was advised to use my phone light and follow along the cobblestone until I reached a staircase, which I was to use to exit. I made it to the stairs when I felt that same chill go up my spine, just as I had before the power had gone out. I looked all around me. On my left was the backside of the fake walls that made up the ride's backdrop. It seemed to be used as a little storage area. The other side was a little pathway for the staff members blocked by a ladder. So I continued ahead, up towards another staircase. But before I exited the ride area, before I got back to my brother and his friend, before I walked them back to the car, not letting them out of my sight for even the slightest moment, before I left that ride area, I heard the faintest sound emanating in the distance behind me. Thanks for listening to all Dente Creepypasta. Your total today comes out to $117, but if you like this video right now, I'll waive that fee and give you everything you just listened to absolutely free. I'd like to give a huge thank you to my collaborators on this video, Robert Austin for composing the original music, Elixir, Margbot, and Don't Turn Around for contributing their narrations, and Naoya Sakamata for performing this end theme. You can find the links to their channels in the credits section at the bottom of the description. Let me know in the comments what other rides I should write a scary story about. But before you exit this ride, please stop by our gift shop, where you can find the new CZsWorld like pillows with 17 different color options. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.